Hello and welcome along to the VMTV Rugby Pod, another episode, and all eyes are set on Twickenham this weekend, Alan. Ireland v England, teams just announced. What do you make of it, Alan? A couple of changes. Suppose the big standout there is Peter O'Mahony coming into the back row. What's your thoughts on it all?
Yeah, it's a strong Irish side. Obviously, you're missing Ronan Keller and Andrew Porter, who they're lost to this Irish side. I think their footballing ability, their presence, their aggression around the field is always a loss to a team, and that's the nature of the business. Throughout the Six Nations, you hope to get through without injuries. But I suppose Peter O'Mahony, and I heard Andy Farrell saying it, he's a big leader. He's an emotional kind of player, and he's a lot of experience. And my thoughts on his selection are, I think he has a history of messing England's line-out up. It gives Ireland obviously that that quality of his ability to win the ball in the line-out, his movement, his presence there. And Matt will know this as a coach. I keep saying that all the time, referring to him as a coach. But if you want to attack in your backline in particular, you want to try and win the ball towards the middle and tail of the line-out. Now, Mahoney gives you a real good option. It's very, very rare that, a ball is thrown to him, even when the opposition know that, and that they can steal it off him, because he's so agile, he gets up so early, and he's a bit of a line-out disciple, which that's what he gives him this week. It's probably harsh on Jack Conan, given where he has been in the last 12 months. I know he didn't start against Italy, but you had the impact of him off the bench, which is kind of an added bonus, I think. And sometimes it's just small tactical things that these selections are made on and based on. And I think the line-out is a big advantage there for Peter O'Mahony.
Matt, do you agree with Alan? Would you have selected Peter O'Mahony, or is it harsh on Jack Conan?
I was surprised Peter was selected. I think he's been fantastic off the bench for Ireland. I've got to give Peter a lot of credit. I thought he was finished probably 18 months ago. I thought we'd seen the end of him, and he just keeps fighting and fighting and fighting like the champion he is. But I was surprised at his selection. I think it is on two fronts. I think it's around the line-out and everything Quinny said there, because we've got to remember the line-out really didn't function against France. France did it for the first time in Paul O'Connell's time in charge. France did a job on the Irish line-out. No one's done that to Ireland while Paul's been in charge. And I think a lot of the other countries would have learnt a lot about what to do to Ireland to shut down their line-out, because Ireland really used that platform as a launch for so much of their plays. And if you can shut down Ireland's line-out, you take off a huge chunk of their go-forward. So Peter's been brought in my opinion, to shore that up. I also think he might be there for another reason, which is to give a bit of dog around to the English halves. There's two young halves, and if you can make their life hell, if you can chat away at them, sledge them, push them, tug them, put them to the ground, make them play deep and pass early, it's going to cause England problems. The English backline has not functioned. So I think he hasn't got 80 minutes in him. At the end of that Italy game, he was noticeably fatiguing. And again, not a criticism. He hasn't played 80 minutes of Test match rugby for a long, long time. So I think Peter's got 50 minutes in him, and then we'll see what they do after that. But I think that those two factors are why he's there. Now, I wouldn't have picked it, but I've got to say this about Andy Farrell. He's got his selection right. Since November to today, he's got every selection he's made has been absolutely spot on. So I think we've got to give him the benefit of the doubt. Even though there are some surprises for us, he has made the right choices in the past. So let's back the coach and let's see where it ends up. But I was surprised personally.
If I could say, Matt, as well, that to be fair to Peter O'Mahony, he's actually played really, really well for Munster this year.
Yeah,
in the games he's played. And I watched this from the very start of the season. The Sharks, the Stormers, first two games, he was one of the standout players that hit the ground running this season. And I think every game he's played for Munster this year, he's had a big impact. I think he's improved his game. His ball handling has been better. His ability and awareness to make some passes. And I think we saw that once or twice. We saw that little inside pass against Italy that led to Joey Carberry's try. So they've obviously seen stuff in training, and this doesn't make Ireland weaker. I think Jack Conan's biggest strength is obviously his athleticism out in the wider channels and just the form he's been in the last year. I think he's been brilliant. Peter gives more in other areas, i.e. the line-out breakdown, and I think he's improved his ball handling ability. So his form has been really good. So when we say we're surprised, we probably shouldn't be that surprised because I've no doubt he's well capable of going there, and he's delivered many times for Ireland. Matt made the point, he hasn't played that many games for Ireland in recent times. I think it's his 9th start under since Andy Farrell took over, which he's been ever present. But so it's a surprise in the sense that Conan, I thought Doris and Van der Fleer, their performances in November kind of accelerated them to a different level. But it's no harm that it's at times everyone has to stay on their toes and deliver at a high level. And I think Peter O'Mahony will be a nuisance for England on Saturday, and that'll be another part of what they want him to try and do.
Alan, if I just stay with you there, you touched on there at the end, a nuisance for England. If you're Marcus Smith, you know, a guy who is trying to lead that backline, not quite functioning at the moment, but O'Mahony's going to want to disrupt him, and he probably is the man to do that.
I wouldn't say it's harder for the 6 to get there. You know, I think Josh Van der Fleer, particularly off probably line out, off phase play. It depends. It can be anyone. You know, Bundy Aki will try and run down his channel. And I think a big mistake that teams make is they think you can run after a fly half and catch him, and you get bogged down in that. The best way to engage a fly half and put pressure on them is run at them, make them tackle, get into that channel. So from a ball carrying point of view, I think that's what you want to do. Of course, if he steps back inside, you want to make sure that you can have egg in your face a little bit sometimes when you run up trying to smash a stepper, and Marcus Smith is a stepper, so they've got to be careful. And I think rather than at any stage trying to shoot out of the line on your own to try and put a big tackle in him is risky, because he can't step and his evasion is very good. So, but I think in general, it's just that presence, that aggression. Matt mentioned it, a bit of doggedness. They'll need it. You know, I think we all have to be very, very careful here, because there's plenty of optimism and expectation, but we've lost, we won the game in the Aviva last year. The previous 4 games that we lost to England, we were bullied, we were manhandled, we were frustrated, we made lots of mistakes. They won't forget that. Their personnel are a little bit different. I think the Vunipola brothers add to that. Their physical presence, Tuolangi has been a big part of that. But they still have Laws, Itoje, Sinclair, Jamie George, Ellis Genge is very, very physical. So we still should be very, very aware. We're not going to go to Twickenham and just manhandle them. I think we've got to play really intelligent rugby. And part of the question you asked, Stuart, there is you start running around trying to get Marcus Smith, you forget your job, you make a mistake. Best way, carry the ball, go into that channel. And I think Wales did that so effectively in the second half the last day. So, but of course, if Van der Fleer can fly off the line out and get him in contact, yes, get in his face. And Sexton will be leading that line up. That's what he'll want to do as well. Get in his face and force him into throwing a loopy pass or forcing something a little bit.
Yeah, elsewhere in the selection, Matt, if we go out the backs, James Lowe, big afternoon for him. He gets a start. Mac Hansen drops out. I've talked to you before in the past. You've been critical of James Lowe, but you've also said the last 6 months or last year, he's really come on defensively. So it is a big afternoon for him, Matt, and a big chance as well.
I think Lowe's, to his credit, has lifted his game since he was included last year, and we saw him make mistakes in the Six Nations last year. You know, but it's a great thing about Andy Farrell was he obviously sent Lowe away and said, look, mate, this is what you've got to work at. And James has being the personality has gone back to Leinster, has worked at it, and then when he's been given the opportunity back in the Irish team, he's done very well. And probably the defensive system has been modified a little bit. I've got to say they're defending better on the fringes than they were in the Six Nations last year, where I think the system also exposed low, where they were just constantly jamming in, and it just wasn't working all the time. So I think Lowe's left foot gets Ireland out of their 22 on that left-hand side of the field. And that's so important against a team like England. And if you look at that backline England have picked, like that doesn't scare me at all, that backline. Now you put Tuilagi in there, you put Farrell at 12, you put Johnny May on one wing and Watson on the other wing. I'm starting to get a little bit more worried. This is definitely the England second 15 in the three-quarter line. Now, that might be a little bit harsh, but you would think that is the three-quarter line that's out as a number one side. But what Smith has done very well is kick off the tee and kick out of hand. And they did some very good 50-22 kicks against Wales. So that means you're going to be pinned in your own 22. So you've got to have a pretty strong strategy to get out of that area, because you make a mistake there, Smith's going to kick 3 points. I think Marcus Smith's attack has been poor. Ball in hand, I think he's been really poor against the Celts. Let's forget Italy. Everyone's good against Italy. They're ranked 14th in the world. Against the big boys, he hasn't been great, but he has kicked very well. And I expect the English game plan to revert right back to the 1950s, and they're just going to play a really basic kick, a harass game plan, a bit along the lines of what they did at the Aviva in 2019. So I think he's definitely, as in James Lowe, is definitely there strategically. I thought they could have picked Hansen on the other wing, but then it would have been tough on Conway. So whoever you left out on that right wing, they could feel hardly done by. But isn't that a great position for Irish rugby? It's like we were talking about Peter O'Mahony. Whoever you left out of that back row or that tight five, Henderson deserves to start. They're all putting their hand up, but that's really good for the team that they've got these choices. Pressure on Conway to perform, because if he doesn't, Hansen will come in and take his spot for the last game. Again, that's a really healthy choice. And I throw the other one in there. I think Bundyaki has improved out of sight over the last couple of years and is currently in front of Robbie Henshaw, even though the end of the lines to Robbie I thought was one of the best inside centres in the world. Robbie hasn't had the same game time this year. So I think there's some really valid arguments for all the selections. And again, that's where we come back to the whole theory. The coach knows best. The coach is with him all day, every day. He's at training. He's seeing what's going on. And they've obviously got a game plan for England. And they need some revenge against England for all the reasons Quinny said. Been manhandled far too long. It's time to do some handling back.
Yeah, big words there from Matt. Do you think, does this England backline scare you at all? What do you make of them in their couple of games? A couple of wins, they obviously lost to Scotland. They're not quite hitting the heights, are they? They're
not, and I think they know that. And it's surprising. I think Owen Farrell is a loss. I think, look, we talk about the effectiveness of Johnny Sexton and the way he's kind of reinvigorated himself and shown his quality and that level of that presence that he has in whatever team he plays in. Farrell is like that for England. Albeit he's younger, much younger, but he has that steely presence, that resilience, that drive. And I think they miss him a little bit, even to play him as a 12. They're playing Henry Slade there, who's a very good player. And Joe Marchant is back in there now. They've tried Elliot Daly a couple of times, so they're down on centres, which is very surprising. I know Manu Tuilagi isn't available, but they just seem to be, down on players in that position. Lots of back three players, but and it's an area that, dare I say it, wouldn't make you nervous or fearful of a side that would have had, Farrell and Tuilagi in the centre, which we've seen a couple of times in the last number of years. But it is what it is. They're still very good footballers. They're probably still trying to gel. He's had no continuity in selection. This is, again, a change of the centre partnership again. Elliot Daly played there the last day. I think, did Marchant play there in Twickenham or in Murrayfield? I know maybe Daly played in Murrayfield again and Marchant was on the wing, but there's a bit of chopping and changing there. They're still trying to find their feet. Pretty much a very inexperienced out half, a very talented one. So they are building a little bit. There's a different sort of pressure to where they're at the moment. But you got to say Ireland will be disappointed if they don't go to Twickenham and win this game. That's not to say they will and it's going to be easy, but I think they should be expecting to go there and at least make it, they're capable of being a dominant side there. England are going to be very, very dangerous. And Joe Marler said it this week, their whole mood around their camp this week is totally different. He was referencing cracking a few jokes at breakfast. Nobody was laughing at his gags or his jokes this week because England know that this is a good Irish side going there. Is there a few vulnerabilities and frailties in the Irish squad? Maybe a few. The physical side of what happened in Paris, England will try and do the same. And they look at that and say, we can smash Ireland here, stop their flow, get in their faces. Maybe we can unsettle them. But we haven't seen that spark from England that we've seen in recent years. And they're still trying to find that. Let's hope they don't find it this Saturday.
Yeah, let's hope they don't as well. Matt, what do you make of Eddie Jones's comments? The usual Ireland are red hot favourites as a former coach. What do you think of that?
As I say, with Eddie's hands doing up here, his other hands picking your pocket. He's just distracting you. A couple of years ago was a scummy Irish. Now they're the best in the world. Like Eddie's just distracting people from the English problem. That's what he does at press conference brilliantly. He's like a politician. Doesn't matter what the question is, he'll give you something else. And if we think back to the World Cup semi-final, what was his strategy at the World Cup semi-final against New Zealand? He kept saying, mate, New Zealand are favourites. That pressure, it's going to get up and chase them down the road like a dog, And he's very funny. And he gets everyone talking. Also, they're talking about New Zealand and pressure instead of talking about his English team. And that's exactly what he's done this week. Ireland are the best, best in the Northern Hemisphere or best team in the competition. They've got continuity. Nothing about the problems England have. So while Eddie's saying that, I'd be, totally ignoring it and saying to my team, right, all the things that Quinny just said, let's just get our line speed up and make Marcus Smith play deep. Make him pass early. We mightn't touch him all day, but make him play deep because that's what he's done against Scotland and Wales. And when they play deep, they're easy pickings. All they got is a kicking game. They can't run. Against Wales at Twickenham, only reason they could score a try was from a bad throw by Wales. They had as much penetration as a wet paper bag thrown against a brick wall. They were poor. They were really poor. So all Eddie's doing is distracting everyone from how poor their go forward is with the ball in hand. Marcus Smith kicking game off the tee was superb. Don't get me wrong. If you make a mistake, that's 3 points. But he is distracting everyone from what that is. And if Ireland have got any sense, you don't let Marcus Smith step you, as Quinny just said, but you pressure him deep. And he's a young guy. He's still learning his trade at the international level. The holes that are there for him in the Premiership are just not there against the top international sides in the world. So you can't throw a dummy and go straight through a hole because he gets clobbered. So what he's doing is getting deeper and deeper and deeper. And they play worse when they do that. He's got to do the opposite. It's what Sexton does, play flat. So all of this is just a distraction for Eddie. And you know what? The Irish team have been there enough. It's just going to be water off the duck's back. They're going to Twickenham. It's a tough joint to go to. It's a hard joint to go to. And they're not going to be distracted by Eddie's jazz hands and what he's saying and doing.
Yeah. And is it too obvious, Matt, to say whoever wins the game line wins this match?
Yeah, I think if you go back to the French game, Ireland really only won the game line and imposed their running game on France for the first 10 minutes of the second half. And in that time, they scored 2 tries. So we know since 2019, England's theory is fast line speed, catch them behind the game line, which is what France did. But they're not going to be able to do it for the 80. So if Ireland can get 20 to 25 minutes in of their game plan, I think they'll score enough points to win that game. as long as they don't give away a lot of kickable penalties. Their discipline is going to be important because Smith can kick the goals, like he's kicking impeccably at the moment. So they don't have to win the game line the whole game, but there has to be a period of that game where they do. And if they can and they get that go forward moving, there will be opportunities for them. And it's the old story of Twickenham. When the opportunity comes, or not just Twickenham, but anywhere away from home, the opportunity comes, you've got to grab it. If we think back to the French game, they had that. We had the 50-22 kick by Byrne. It was a line out 7 metres out. There's your opportunity. And if they had caught that ball, they might have scored. And of course, the ball was thrown on the tail, but Ireland lost the ball. So there's your opportunity missed. That's the fine lines when you're away from home. So when their opportunities come, they've got to grab them. And there will be opportunities from an English side that'll be dogged, but it's not the best English side I've seen in the last 5 years.
I do think, though, Matt, Ireland have got to be very, very conscious and aware of that pressure they're going to be put under from England.
Yeah.
And you know, as a coach yourself, if you're coaching a team who still a few question marks about this English team, one significant win can change the perception of your team. It can build your confidence to a level. And I think possibly this English team are kind of that one win away from changing the perception. Suddenly, they believe themselves, and this is what Eddie Jones will want to believe. They beat Ireland at the weekend. They're suddenly going to Paris with their chests out a little bit and throwing caution to the wind a little bit and maybe go there and do something special. Lose to Ireland, Paris then is, for me, and this is the danger for Eddie Jones. You lose to Ireland, you go to Paris and you get a walloping there. The pressure on him to continue as head coach is going to ramp up because there is a few question marks at the moment. So very, very risky business for us and for Ireland to get anyway complacent here. It's really important because I tell you, if I was in the English squad, there's still a very, very, very good side there. Simmons is a brilliant player. Tom Curry, world class. Itoje, Sinclair, Ellis Genge, these guys, they're going to make it hell for Ireland. But Ireland have got to impose themselves and deal with the pressure points in the game when they're under pressure, when England have them on the rack, keep their discipline and just be really, really steely in about what they go about. Because Ireland lose this game, then are we looking at a really poor Six Nations? Possibly. So there's a lot on the line for both teams here.
Huge amount, Quinny. I agree with you, mate. I think it's the best English pack they've put out in the tournament.
And I think in the last number of years, Matt, I've looked at the Irish teams who've gone to Twickenham and I've said, this is tricky. This is hard. I find it hard to see us winning. I see us having the ability to win this one and a lot more confident. That doesn't guarantee you results. It's about their mindset and stuff, how they react. Italy didn't do us any favors, that performance. We needed a more sustained, pressurized game in there from Italy. So Ireland need to hit the ground running here. They need to start well in Twickenham and be on the front foot early on and be the ones controlling the tempo. Easier said than done, but part of me thinks from a quality point of view, Ireland are in a really good position here. I'm confident they can do well. But there's another part of me nervous that England are going to really try and make it hell for them.
Can I spin that on its head too, Alan? All the things you said about England is exactly the same for Ireland. I see this as a really pivotal game for this Irish team. Like, you go to Twickenham, you get a win there. Wow, you got the wind in your sails. You're going, you'll boot Scotland at home next week. You go to New Zealand. I think this team, if they win against England, they're capable of pulling off a test match win in New Zealand, maybe that first test. And look how that sets up 2023 for the World Cup. You lose at Twickenham and you don't get that wind in your sails and you don't pick up a win in New Zealand. You go 4 on the trot getting beaten. That means you're going to 2023 with a completely different wave of momentum. So I think for both sides, Twickenham is a momentous day.
Yeah, as you say, so much on the line for both teams. As we've got to move on to tomorrow night, Wales v France. France still going for the Grand Slam. Alan, are they just too good and too strong? Are they going to play England going for that Grand Slam 4 in a row games and going for the 5th next weekend, or can Wales cause a problem?
I think Wales are in better fettle than they have been, obviously, the start of the tournament. They have a little bit of continuity there. He's made some changes this week, some good players. Navidi coming back in. John Davies goes into 12, which is an interesting selection. His form hasn't been great in the last number of months. I think they can trouble him. I really thought Scotland had opportunities, particularly just before half-time when they had a clear line break. Didn't get to try. A minute or two later, France go up, score before half-time. Changes the whole complexion of the game. Scotland were bruised and battered at the end, and France just totally outmuscled them. Can Wales do better? Well, it's a Friday night in the Principality Stadium. It's a big scalp for Wales if they can get this result. A really, really tall order. I think France are at a different level at the moment from a mental point of view, and French teams on the road a number of years ago were brittle, made lots of mistakes, and just didn't show the same intensity that they showed home. But this group is different, and it's going to be very, very, very difficult for Wales to stop them. But on paper, when you look at the teams, Wales look strong. They look much better, as I said, than they were at the start of the tournament. And I think they can cause France problems. But the big challenge is, you let France get on the front foot, getting over the gain line, quick ball, very hard to stop their big forwards and their runners. So Wayne Pivac will want to have a strategy, and Gethin Jenkins, the defence coach, how do you stop them on the gain line, double up, slow their ball down a little bit, because France kick a huge amount. They kick a lot up the middle of the field, and they want to get into this kick tennis thing. And then, they get a chance, and of course they have individual brilliance, and they have a sniff of a gap, and they go through it, and they get quick ball, and Dupont can just make something happen. We saw that in Scotland when ball kicked up the middle of the field by Finn Russell. Poor chase. Darcy Graham got a little bit sloppy and lazy, and Dupont is gone, and they're back in under the post a couple of minute later. So you've got to be spot on with your defence, and their only chance, I think, on Friday night is to frustrate France and slow them down. Easier said than done, but France are certainly in the driving seat, and it's hard to see anyone stopping them at this stage.
Yeah, Matt, which way do you see this one going? I know you're a big fan of this French team. I think you said over the last 18 months or however long, how much they've improved and how good they're going to get.
Yeah, I think the win against Scotland was a very significant match for that group in their development. They have had a history in the last 3 years as a young group of losing test matches that everyone thought they should win. They lost to England in the pandemic autumn series, the Autumn Cup, I think it was called. In that final, in the last minute, they lost to England again. They lost to in the Six Nations the other year. They lost to the Wallabies in the second test after full time. They lost to Scotland in Paris after full time. So they have this or had this vulnerability. And the way the emphatic victory at Murrayfield, you could just see almost them mature in front of your eyes as a group. So the fact they've got that win under their belt at Murrayfield will stand them in good stead. However, going to the Principality Stadium on a nighttime game, it always favours Wales, and they are so hard to throw in Cardiff. And I think it'll be a really close game. I think it'll be much closer than a lot of people are saying. I think the thing that you can't legislate for in the French side is just the individual brilliance they got. You saw Fiku get the ball in the Scottish 22, and he's on the first goalpost, running from left to right. So he's got another 40 metres, and he just goes around the whole. The defenders, bumps off everyone and scores a try. You see Finno going a touch. He throws it back inside to his loose head prop, who throws it back inside to Moefana, and they score a try. Like, you can't legislate for that. No defensive system stops that because they're just got this genius about them. So I think the genius, my experience of playing against genius is you can't stop it. And if it comes out, France will win that game and be set up for a Grand Slam at home the following week against England.
Yeah, the French physicality, obviously Ireland, but also against Scotland, it was unbelievable, wasn't it? The two-man tackles and how good they are at the breakdown.
Yeah, it's just constant pressure, and it's difficult to counteract that. I think the best way, and Scotland just gave the ball back to France very easily. You get a couple of chances, a couple of opportunities, and if you can build phases, well, you would hope that you can get some opportunities. And Scotland, as I said, just before half-time, should have scored a try. Didn't take that, and they concede one up the other end of the field just before half-time. So for Wales, it's about, if there's opportunities present themselves, take them, front up, try and impose yourself, get the crowd behind you. And, Dan Biggar putting the ball in the right areas. Faletau, I thought he was outstanding in Cardiff. Navidi maybe slowing up some of their breakdown and just stopping France's flow and be patient then in the kicking game. I think 2 years ago, this game in Cardiff, they got an intercept try, and I think it was Intermac who got the intercept when Wales were on the attack, and they kind of gifted France 2 tries that day and ended up losing the game by 4 points. So small margins, but I'd be confident that Wales will certainly put it up to France, and but I think there's a lot of experience now, and there's a lot of confidence in this French side, and they're a very intelligent side. They control the tempo of the game very, very well, and they pounce at opportunities when they present themselves. But Wales, it'll be interesting. Sean Edwards going back there to Cardiff again, and he had so much success over Wales and made him such a brilliant defensive side. It's exactly what Wales need tomorrow night. Get off the line and smash France and close them down and hope they can force some mistakes out of them.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting. We will see if they can go 4 from 4 and set up that Grand Slam against England. But Matt, last game of the weekend to talk about, Italy v Scotland. Is this the Italians' chance to finally break that duck in the Six Nations and get a win?
Oh, well, I think there's 2 parts of that, Stu. Everyone wants Italy to win except the team they're playing. No one wants to be that team that breaks the duck, do they? I got to say, against Ireland, the fast that the Laws produced in that game, I saw something in this Italian side that I haven't seen for a long time. And Alan will know this. When the game throws outrageous adversity at you, which rugby does, the game is designed to do that because it came out of a school to teach people about adversity. So the whole game is designed at times to really make your life hard. And what you see in some teams is they quit. And I've seen Italian teams quit. But against Ireland, they didn't quit. Even though it was impossible. When they were down to 12 men, they still didn't quit. Lamara, their captain, has topped the tackle count in the Six Nations. He was superb at the breakdown. And they tackled their heart out at periods against Ireland. And then someone would make a crazy error and Ireland would score a try. But I saw a change in attitude. So I don't know. I don't believe that's enough to say Scotland, they're going to lose. I don't mean that at all. But I did see something there where I hope that Italy get angry. They say, I'm just not putting up with this crap anymore. And their captain, by example, is saying to people, I'm not accepting that from you anymore. You've got to make your tackles because it's defence that is killing Italy. There's a few other things, but if you don't get your do right, it doesn't matter what you do with the rest of it. So I did see a bit there. And I've got to also say Scotland did the opposite. Scotland were right in that game up until Stuart Hogg dropped the ball with about 45 seconds or a minute. I think it was 45 seconds. It might have been a little bit more. It might have been a minute and 45 seconds before half-time. If Stuart Hogg takes that ball, scores a try, momentum shifts. Scotland are in the driving seat. Instead, he drops it. Fofana goes down the other end. They score just right on half-time. Game changed. But then Scotland did throw the towel in. That's the difference. Now, Here you've got one side, the Italian side said, we just copped the hiding, but we didn't quit. We fought, and we took something out of that adversity, where Scotland said, oh, hang on a minute, we actually turned our toes up here for the last 30 minutes. So it's going to be a very, very interesting game. And I can't tell you what I'm going to see. What should happen? Scotland have a lot better players, so Scotland should win. But that Italian side, it might just be the spark that they need to start taking steps forward.
Alan, have you seen enough from this Italian side to upset the apple cart and win in Rome?
Probably not. Not enough consistency. I think they showed incredible fight against Ireland, but it was damage limitation stuff. Matt mentioned the captain there, Lamaro, outstanding player. Garbisi is a very good player. Ioane on the wing is dangerous. Pierre Bruno, who went off. So they have some good players. He went off when the sending off happened, or when the sending off happened, and they had to reduce go down to 13 men. There is some good players there. I just think there's no consistency in performance, and I think that's the issue. Can they put together 80-minute performance and beat Scotland? I don't know. It's 7 years since they won a game in the Six Nations. It was against Scotland. It was in Murrayfield. They won 22-19, I think. Can they win one in Rome? Well, everybody bar, unless you're from Scotland, would love to see Italy get back on track and be really competitive in Six Nations, and maybe win a game at the weekend. I have lots of Scottish friends, so they won't be happy with me saying that, but are they good enough to do it? Well, it's very hard to see. I think that, Scotland will be trying to bounce back. I think they'll be really disappointed with the way the second half went against France. Desperately disappointed with what happened in Cardiff. So I think there's some very good players in this Scottish side. I'm glad that he's retained Rory Darge. I thought he was outstanding against France. Hamish Watson is back. Matt Fagerson is back. Still issues with that Scottish side, particularly up front. Sam Johnson is back in the centre. So I think there's enough experience and quality in the Scottish side to comfortably win the game. I just think the biggest problem for Italy is that consistency. They can do some very, very good things, maybe build 5, 6, 7 phases, and then they come up with an error or mistake. Somebody gets isolated, and that's been the problem. But there's a sense, and I agree a lot with Matt says, what they did against Ireland with 13 men and 12 men for the last 5 minutes when Bram Stein was yellow carded. You'd have to have a lot of admiration for that, the fight they showed. But it's down to quality and what Kieran Crowley will try and implement. It's taking them to a different level, making sure their discipline is right, their catch pass, their accuracy, all that kind of stuff. They're below the top tier nations at the moment, unfortunately.
Matt, a final one on this. For the good of rugby and the good of the Six Nations, we need this one to be close, don't we?
Yeah, we do. We do. Look, you want competition. You want teams to win Grand Slams and earn it, and be exciting. Like it's what France is doing is exciting. And you look at Ireland and England, really fighting it out. Wales, they were poor the first game. They got better. Scotland were great the first game. They've fallen apart a little bit. But they're highly competitive. And no one expects Italy to come out and do, just with the numbers of players and where the sport is there. But, getting beaten by 50 every week, that's not good for anyone. It's not good. It's not good for the media. It's not good for the competition. It's horrible. It must be absolutely horrible for the Italian players. And it's not good for rugby in the country. So they need to get leadership on the field and to pull and to fight. And that's what I liked about the other week, what Alan said. If they fight their guts out, you can put up with that because you go, wow, you can see something there. But what's been happening up to this date's been so awful for everyone to commentate on, to watch, and for the players on both sides. And the England game was a horrible game. England, Italy, and Rome. So again, for their own sake and their own pride, they really need to come out and have a real dig in Rome this weekend.
Yeah, hopefully we will see them deliver at least a pretty good performance anyway. Lads, what are we saying? Predictions, please. Alan, we'll start with you.
Predictions, yeah. Hang me out to dry first. Let me see. It's a bit of a lottery, isn't it? I'm going to go Wales, Ireland, Scotland.
Woo.
And Matt, go on. You had a bit of time there to think.
Well, we're together with Scotland and Ireland, but I think the French are on track for a Grand Slam. So France in Cardiff.
I'm just picking Wales because I want them to beat France. It'll probably be France, but I'm still going to say just Wales. You never know; it might happen then, and I'll be saying, Matt, I told you so.
Like you always do, Quinny.
Or else you just be laughing at me saying, why did you pick Wales? Because France are an incredible side, to be fair.
You've been saying that to me for 20 years,
Well, just for Alan, we hope Wales win. And lads, you can tune in, obviously, everyone, on Saturday at 1:30 for Italy v Scotland. And lads, thanks as always for your time, and we'll catch you again next week.
Pleasure, Stuart.
Cheers, Stuart.